everybody. Happy New Year. This is our first meeting for 2024. And as you might have seen in the Facebook group, during this break, I kind of came up with the fact that we're going to be doing a lot more in 24 to help you do more in 24. And that's a goal of mine. I think that as we left for the Christmas break, some of you have had the opportunity to go in and check out the PFG Academy. I appreciate that. Those that have not had a chance to check it out yet, please do. You might want to take a look at it. There's, of course, it is a new platform for me, and there's a ton of stuff on there. I haven't released everything, but I'm going to be adding a lot of content as we move forward. And that's where the recordings for these Monday morning calls are going to be located as well. So it'd be real easy for you to be able to get in there without the distraction of going on the Facebook to watch this, because if you're like me, every time I go on the Facebook to make a post or do something, I am totally in a wormhole, and I could end up being in there for some time, and I don't like that. So I actually refrain from going on the social media as much as I possibly can, because it's just, it's just not where I want to be spending the majority of my time. So I think the platform is going to be very beneficial for us all, and certainly I welcome your feedback. Any feedback would be wonderful. But let's go ahead and open this up. I know it's been a little bit of a break, so let's get right back into it with maybe some wins that you've had, something that you're grateful for, or what your big goal is for 2024. Who wants to start us off? Anybody? Come on. I know we got some. All right, go ahead, Jeremy.
So it's not a win yet, but actually this weekend, there's an agent that I've been after for like a year. I see him at the gym. He does really well in real estate. He's happy with the title company he was at, but now he's unhappy. And so I have an appointment with him this week. So fingers crossed that I can make it work, because I think he produces like 50 or 60 million a year. So
Wow.
it would be pretty big. So really excited that my persistence kind of paid off on that one, hopefully.
Persistence. That's wonderful. Yeah. Because then we're going to be talking about persistence in the coming weeks, right? So persistence is key to most things in life. And here you go. Probably one thing has happened, got the guy upset, and now he's ready to jump ship, right?
Yep.
Maybe there's a couple other things too. Maybe it wasn't just one thing, but typically that's what happens in our business. So it is important to stay after people, because, and just as I'm going to be talking here in a few minutes, is no doesn't necessarily mean no. It's more like maybe just not right now.
Yep.
Yeah. So very cool. All right. Who else has got one? Dagmara, I know you got a big win.
Okay.
Oh, Ellie, I'm sorry. Hold on, Dagmara. Ellie, you had popped your hand up right after Jeremy, so let me let you go.
I woke up to a signed listing agreement this morning. They sent it at 3:17 a.m., but I've been pursuing that one for weeks now.
Oh, congratulations on that. Yeah, sometimes we have to be persistent in our pursuit, right? Yeah.
So I have 5 pending, currently holding 7 listings. Hopefully the last 2 will be pending in the next week. And
awesome.
One going live on February 1st, pursuing one for an appointment. That's it. I had to drive to Jacksonville for my one listing. Remember the one that ghosted me?
That's fantastic. What a way to start the new year. You've got all that business on the books. And that's what I keep talking, that, by having a good, strong fourth quarter, it helps to jumpstart the first quarter and makes it a lot easier to get to the goals. If you don't mind me asking, what's your goal for this year? 24, 40 transactions. Well, you're off to a great start. So that's fantastic. I hope you can make it. And if there's anything we can do to help, feel free to reach out. So
thank you.
Dagmara.
So I have actually completed all of the GRI courses finally, and I am going to be taking the exams with about 6 minutes to spare. So that was really stressful. I'm really glad that that's almost done. My post-licensure requirement that I don't know, I seem to have not been able to get to. And then just recently, as you know, we have a new listing in Williston, Florida for over 2 million. So I'm excited about that.
And that's, you should be excited about that, because it's a fabulous way to get your listings jump started. And I mean, there's so much that can come from that opportunity. So that is fantastic.
I'll just say I'm grateful for the new year. There's a lot of stuff I want to purge from 2023 and I want to have a fresh start. We have our first quarter is looking just fine. We have some listings, but it's not, you don't ever take your foot off the gas pedal. So it's all good. I'm just looking forward to a new year.
All right. Brian or Elliot?
Good morning, everybody. I'm in the car. That's why the camera's off. I got a call on Friday from one of our top lending partners, probably my top lending partners since I've been in the business, telling me, so you will see this on social media probably in a few weeks. I'm now ranked as one of the top 1% loan officers for this company, which was, I still don't believe it.
That's fantastic.
That
Nice,
was
Brian.
thank you. That was a really cool call. But that's my goal for this year is not, I mean, yeah, we've got business goals, but I'm trying to travel more this year. I felt like I only took a few vacations last year and don't want that to happen again in 2024. So try to find more of that balance. So that's what I've got going on.
Good
All
luck
right.
with that being one of the top lenders in the country now.
Yeah, I can fall down to number 2 or number 3. That's okay.
Yeah, that's great, Brian. Congratulations on that. And Elliot, what you got?
I picked up a $3 million vacant land listing over the weekend, so that'll be going live this coming week. And I got a FSBO converted into a listing, so that'll be going live this week too. So
Awesome.
fortunate for 2024, and hopefully looking to hire a couple agents as well.
Good luck with the hiring of a couple agents. Yeah, we all know how challenging that is. So,
Yeah, I went through a couple last year. So
yeah. Well, good. That sounds good. And then Isis, welcome. Glad to see you can jump on. You got I know you got on a little bit late. We're just talking about any wins or things you're grateful for, or what your thoughts are for 2024 moving forward with your goals. You want to share?
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Well, I finished the year with a contract, so that was good. My goals this year are to get, start doing more business, getting more knowledge. Yeah, and just grow as a person and grow as a professional.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, it seems like you've been busy. Hopefully you've got your career moving in the right direction. It seemed like you've been doing some open houses and things that I've seen on social media.
Yes, I am.
Good.
And working with I got some leads.
Yeah, and you've got Ellie as your mentor too, right?
Yeah, she's part of my brokerage too. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So you're in good hands and follow the directions.
Yes.
Not rocket science. You just gotta do the work. So I'm grateful for being here in 2024. Like I said, I've got so many goals in mind for myself and for us, and that is part of my problem is that, boy, I'm going to try to do it in a more organized way where I can accomplish more, a little less effort. So I do hope to have more free time this year because Valerie and I do have some intentions, some travel, and I think I've got to make some trips up north. My parents are, in the mid 80s. And so the goal is to still be here every Monday, but get my traveling in and get that downtime and be working, not so much work-life balance, but work-life harmony. So we're going to talk more about that in another week and kind of share how you can reach that level of work-life harmony versus balance, because I'm a firm believer that you can't find work-life balance. It doesn't exist. So what I want to do is I want to dive in here today. I have which topic? I've got an array of topics, right? There's so much I want to talk about, so much I can talk about and share. Being in this business for 20 years, there's just so much I've seen, I've done, I've accomplished, I've helped others do. I've seen what others are doing. I try to keep up with the latest trends. And I think maybe next week we might talk about some of the trends going on for this year that you can expect. I feel like one of the most important things that we need to do that agents are reluctant to do is make phone calls. Making phone calls is that number one thing that we must do in our business. There's no getting around it. Yeah, you can be a social media king or queen and, do all these posts and attract business that way. Yes, you can. There are passive ways to be able to get business. But if you're not following up with those leads that you're getting through social media by making those phone calls, then it's all a moot point anyway, right? Because people typically aren't going to chase you down to do the business. You have to go and not necessarily chase them, but you want to attract them to you, but then you have to follow up, right? You have to nurture them. And you can nurture them through social media, through emails, through text messages, but there's nothing better than nurturing them with an actual phone call, having a conversation, building some rapport. So what I decided today was we were going to talk about 6 different ways to overcome call reluctance. All right, because I know I've talked about this in the past, but I felt like this was like that one thing. If we can get over this hump, that it can really make 2024 so much better. And look, when I talk to you about this, I'm not any different than any of you, right? So I suffer from call reluctance at times myself. You know, I sit here and I'll make some calls and I'll be like, oh yeah, it's approaching noontime. It's like, maybe it's not a good time to call them. And it's like, Paul, shut up, make the call. Okay. This is the talk I have with myself. So, because, you know, you're looking for reasons not to have to do it. When I set my goals for making my calls and I actually get on to making them, it actually feels good. It's like going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, you're kind of dragging. I'm like, oh man, I really don't feel like going, but you get there and you start pumping iron, you start doing some exercises and the blood's flowing and you start feeling good. And at the end of the session, you're like, wow, man, that was great. Well, your phone calls can be the same way. They're playing a game. They're getting paid high dollars for it, but you don't necessarily see all the effort that goes in to preparing to play that game. And so that's really what we need to do is have a game plan for ourselves. One of the ways to get yourself prepared for making calls is using affirmations. And I think that affirmations are one of those things that have been misleading. There's a lot of people teaching about affirmations, and it's just like, oh, well, just say, I'm a $20 million producer. Well, if you're not, your head's going to say, oh, Paul, you're not. You know, it's not going to believe you. So your affirmations have to be believable. So using something like, I am a successful real estate agent, or, I provide an awesome service to my customers, or I feel good when I'm working with buyers and sellers. Bless you, Jeremy. Anything that's in a positive note, okay, that gets your mindset going in the right direction, it's going to help reduce anxiety. It's going to help give you more self-confidence. And it's so important to have that when you make the calls, because that feeling that you have does actually convey over the phone. And so it's really important. And that's why I tell people, is, when you're making the calls, maybe stand up. I've got 2 stand-up desks here, so I can stand up. Although since I've gotten a little older, I stand up a lot less. But I used to stand up when I was before I became a managing broker and I was big into the sales. I got my first stand-up desk so that I can stand up. I had the energy. I closed my office door. Agents in the hallway can hear me. I didn't care if they could hear me. I just was trying to eliminate the sound from traveling so I didn't disturb others. But I got on the phone and, I make sure that I smiled and make sure that, I was happy, and I would be prepared. And that's one of the things in working with, the Delaware Comedy Theater. I actually performed with them back in the day, back in Delaware. But I never realized, like, even the performers that you wouldn't even think, before they do anything, you're warming up. And so we did these voice exercises before we go out on stage to warm up. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, because now it's like getting you going. It's getting the voice muscles going and everything about performing and producing, which when we get on the phone, we're kind of like performing, aren't we? So it gives you that ability to do that. The number 2 thing is to expect yeses, but embrace the no. All right. And this is hard because, nobody likes the rejection. Right? Nobody likes rejection, but at the same time, a lot of times we go into the calls expecting a no. Like, yeah, I know I'm going to make 25 calls today. I'll probably get 20 no's, but maybe I'll get 5 yeses. Well, what if we were to approach it that, well, I'm going to make 25 calls today. I expect 25 yeses. or at least 25 conversations. And I know that we have to manage our expectations, because if we have an expectation that's up here and we only get to here, we get disappointed. Okay. But we shouldn't look at the lack. We should look at, well, if we shot for here, but we got to here on something that is so challenging to do in the first place, that's a big win. And you should look at it as a win, because, you know, if you can't shift that perspective, what happens is it turns into discouragement. Getting discouraged is just going to make you say, well, you know what? I'm not going to make calls. Calls don't work, right? You probably heard it from other agents. Oh, I don't make calls. Cold calls don't work. And you know, the calls I make really aren't cold calls. They're people that responded to my ads and gave me permission to call them. So that's a little bit more of a warm call, although, you know, I get my share of fake people and just, you know, things that are going wrong. I had one Saturday. Oh my God, she was all over our website and just liking properties, and she was favoring properties, and she scheduled a tour for her property. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's have a quick conversation. And nothing. And finally she's like, yeah, how's 5 p.m. tomorrow work? I'm like, great, I can set up the showing for 5 p.m. tomorrow, but we need to have a conversation. I haven't heard back from her since. So, you know, it's just like, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go keep chasing after her, because it was probably just a bogus lead in the first place, right? So you have to be careful on where you spend your time and place your energy when it comes to, you know, making calls and simply working with people that come in that are a cold lead that you think might be a warm lead. So, but you got to remember that, you know, the rejection is just part of the sales nature. I looked at it as, the more I can get rejected, better I'm going to become at my calls, and the stronger I become at accepting the rejection, because it's like, okay, no big deal. And always remembering that no, for some people, it's a no, a definite no forever, but that's okay. You know, you can't think about that. You got to remember that at some point, these people might still do something, and you might still have an opportunity to do something with them. You just have to continually follow up. Don't have the time to do that on your own, then maybe through, you know, like an ISA or having some help to be able to do that would help simplify things for you. So I know we've talked about this for a number of times, and I know most real estate agents are reluctant to it, but the number 3 thing is utilizing a script. I've heard it from numerous agents. I don't want to use a script. I can't work from a script. A script is going to provide guidance. The script gives you some details. It gives you some words to use, some phrases to use. It gives you something to practice with, to be able to have conversations in a way where it becomes easier to overcome objections. It becomes easier to accept that rejection. And it gives you the confidence of being able to provide certainty. And we've talked about certainty. You know, sales at its highest level is the transference of emotion, and that primary emotion is certainty. So when you can establish certainty in the mind of a buyer, they're more likely going to work with. And that's where, when you're making the calls, you've got to be certain. You've got to, when you're trying to set a time for somebody to get on the phone with or to meet with, you know, just give them 1 or 2 options. Don't be like, oh, well, and I do this myself. I'm guilty of it. Oh, you know, give me a call back. I'm available anytime. Here's my cell phone number. There's no urgency there. There's no certainty there. So if you can provide certainty, you know, give me a call back. I'll be available at 7 p.m. tonight if you want to talk. You know, here's my cell phone. Yeah, just things like that are so important, because if you can provide certainty in their mind, then they're going to feel better about working with you and better about the situation, especially when there's so much uncertainty in the market and in the world and the economy and all this stuff around us. I mean, it's just, you know, the uncertainty is just breeding like wildfire. So prepare a script. Now, there's so many scripts out there that you can use, but you know what? If you take the time to create your own script, then it's coming out, it's your words. And when you sit down to develop it and write it, it burns it into here a lot easier. When you're trying to memorize somebody else's script, and you don't even really have to memorize it, But if you practice with somebody else's script, it's still going to give you some words. I'll tell you, the first time I learned about scripting was back in like 2005. And that was long after I got started, because when I got started, I didn't work off of scripts. I didn't know about scripts. Scripts weren't offered to me. And then I learned about it. And then in 2005, when I was at a seminar and it was about the changing market, and they gave us words to use and phrases to use and statistics and things to help with the changing market, I started using that. And I found how effective that became in the transactions that I was working on. So not only the transaction, but in working with new people that would be approached to me. So, and the thing is, you've got to practice these scripts and internalize them, right? So you don't memorize the script to read from the script or to project the script. You practice the script to internalize it, and then it comes out in your own words, right? So it gives you enough to go on to be able to get the language, get the certainty that is required and the confidence required to get your message across. Does that make sense? But with this, the scripts are only going to be so good if you actually do some role playing. And that's the number 4 item, is to role play and practice. And this is where a lot of agents, and look, with Zoom, you can role play with somebody right through Zoom. If you have an office setting where you go into the office, go in the conference room and do some role playing. I used to do that with my agents over in Dr. Phillips when I was over there, and it was just very effective, because during that role play, you can easily break off of the script too and converse about what's going on and how this applies and where you can use certain things. So you want to make sure that you can effectively use the scripts. Make sure you have somebody that you can role play with, practice. Again, just to bring sports in, because I think we can all relate to sports, but especially baseball. What happens before a baseball game? They're still having batting practice, and they're warming up, and they're stretching, and they're getting prepared. You think that, well, they should be prepared. They play 170 games per season, right? And come that 160th game, do they not prepare before the game? No, they still prepare. They still prepare. And in football, they prepare all week for that game on Sunday. And when Sunday is over, boom, they hit it again. They start preparing for the next Sunday. So you've got to do the same thing. You've got to prepare yourself for that next call or that next series of calls. Set specific goals for yourself. Where do you want to be with your calls? I think it's not unrealistic to make 25, 30 calls a day. It's hard. It's not unrealistic though. And I know people that are making a ton more calls. I know, Ellie, you're using a dialer. I know you make a lot more calls than that. I don't know if you want to share the actual number.
Between 250 to 450 calls
A day?
Mm-hmm. Those
Yeah.
are dials.
Those are dials. Yeah. And we know that, when you dial out, there's a good chance you're not getting anybody. You're going to get voicemail and then, and we'll talk on another session about what happens when you're making these calls. Do you leave messages? Do you not leave messages? And the different methods to be able to reach out to people. And I know a lot of people.
Price point.
Yeah, it depends on the price point. Absolutely. Look, we're in business to make money, right? And so if we have people that we have as options to potentially work with that are in the $1 million range, we might spend a little bit more time working on trying to capture them than we are on those people that are looking for between 200 and 300,000, because we know how challenging that's going to be. It's going to require a lot more work to work with somebody looking in 200 to 300 range than it is working with $1 million range in most cases. You're absolutely right. You've got to think about, well, who are you going to call? And there's a lot of different ways to load up your database to have people to call. And that's another topic that we can touch upon in another call. But having the goals set for how many you're going to make, the objections that you're going to hear, right? Right now we've been hearing a lot about interest rates. So I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait for the market to crash. I'm going to wait for prices to come down. I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down. I'm going to wait, right? So you've got to have some scripts in mind so that you can talk to those people in a way to help make sense to them. And it's not so much about what you're going to tell them. It should be more about the questions you're going to ask them to help them understand why they're thinking the way they are and help them put it into a better perspective that's more realistic to the current market conditions. So, and not just the headlines that they're reading, right? Because they're all reading the headlines, and the headlines are all doom and gloom. They always are. Even in the best of times, the headlines are doom and gloom, because that's what attracts people. That's what sells products. And that's what they're all about. It's all about the money. So, you know, in setting your goals, you want to be able to celebrate your achievements too. You know, that's one thing I think we tend to forget. You know, if we accomplish, if I set a goal for, let's just say 25 calls today, and maybe I only make 20 calls, and I say 25 to 30 because I don't use a dialer like Ellie. For me, mentally, I can't keep track of that many calls. I want to be able to take my time and put a note in my CRM about each person. And like, I tried to call, and that way I can go back when I pull a person up again. And I was like, man, I've called them, 20 times and I've got nothing from them. Maybe I shouldn't waste any more time on this person. Right. And I think with the dialer, the dialer probably records all that sort of stuff.
It records, your dials. You can go to the tab that has the history on it and what you discussed, follow-up appointments, tag them. It's pretty cool. I mean, it helps me keep track because I was losing track of those who to follow up with, especially quarterly. Time is way far out.
Yeah. And that's just it, right? You start getting too many and you do lose track of those that needed to be followed up on. And I had one just last week. I have followed up with this person. They were a potential sale and purchase. And I'd followed up. We talked before. They were on a drip that we've been sending property. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this one, she opened up our website again. I got notification. I'm like, oh, okay. Rachel's back in there. Let me go check on Rachel and see what's going on. I go into the database and I'm like, okay, yeah, I haven't reached out in a while. So let me just go ahead and pull her up in the tax records. And I did that. And I was like, just a couple of weeks ago, she went ahead and listed her condo and she listed with somebody else. And I'm like, okay, opportunity miss, right? And I can tell you over 20 years, I have missed a ton of opportunities. Somehow, for some reason, you go into the tax records and you maybe pull up a name or you see a sale on something and you see somebody's name on it. And you're like, man, didn't follow up with that person like I should have and missed opportunity. And I'm like, all right, Paul, give myself a little kick in the butt. And it's like, all right, move on, next. And that's because I have an abundance of people in my database and I can't keep up with them, which is why I do slow down so that I can keep records and I can try to remember and also have a list of people that are like kind of ongoing and potential that are my follow-ups. And she was on my follow-ups list, but I didn't do an effective job. So as you can see, I'm no different than anybody else here. I don't preach that, hey, we've got to do this sort of stuff. There's times when I'm very good at it and I'm very successful at it, but then there's other times where it slips through my cracks as well because I'm trying to do too much. And this is something that my former CEO said, Paul, you're trying to do too much. And I was like, I understand that. I said, but I have big goals. In order to get to those big goals and things that I want to do and I want to accomplish, I have to take a lot on. And sometimes what that does is it makes you a little less effective in some of the things that you do. However, I have found through the course of my life, because I've always been this way and I've never changed, is that I get things that come my way out of left field. Because I'm like, I strive every day for excellence. I strive to do the right thing. I strive to do all the things that I need to do in my business to make it grow. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I didn't make the calls, but there's other things going on around me that is producing activity and producing business. But still set the goals, okay, and do everything that you can, and then celebrate the achievements, even if you don't make that goal. Take the time to celebrate. And then number 6 is using the technology and tools. I'll tell you what. It's just the abundance. I mean, I've watched it from when I started in January of 2003 and see where we're at today with technology and tools. And look, I was a tech trainer before I got into real estate. And because, to really keep up with technology, you got to stay in it full time. I fell behind, but I'm like, I'm dumbfounded by like how much technology is around me, how much it has changed and grown over the years. And that's one of the things that is not going to change. I mean, it's just going to keep coming at us like a fire hose with new things, new platforms, new ways to do business. And if you're not implementing AI in your business, you need to. And if you guys need me to do some more trainings on AI, I'm happy to, but there's trainings all over the internet. I don't want to do, the trainings on things that change so fast that by the time I get it together and come to teach you something, it's probably already changed, right? So I'd rather people that are doing that for a living and doing it full time, they should be the ones teaching you what's going on with the technology and the AI and the social media and all that. So that's why, if you remember a while back, I did a session on Canva and YouTube and getting started with both of those. And I'm like, geez, I kind of look at the video. I'm like, a lot of that is obsolete already. And I'm like, so it's really, you have to keep up with this stuff. It's a struggle. It's time consuming. But the thing is that, with AI, there's just so much you can do within your business to help make things easier, to help save some time, and to really get your business out there. Because if you're not using AI, you are going to fall behind. There's no doubt about it, because this is not going away. This is kind of like the internet 2.0, where, in the 90s, the internet rolled around and people were skeptical. And it's like, yeah, it's like, the internet's just a phase. It's gonna die out. Look at the internet now, and look at AI. AI has been around for a long time. It's just that only this past year it has become available to the general public. Before that, it was like built in the different programs that you had to use and maybe pay for. And, all the search engines have been using it for a long time. And so many other platforms that we use in every day has been using AI for quite some time. But you want to be able to leverage that. You want to be able to leverage your CRM. You want to be able to leverage using a dialer if you need to use a dialer, if that helps you make the calls. I mean, there's so many tools out there. What you have to be careful of are the shiny pennies, right? The shiny object syndrome, which is a real deal. All right. Because I find myself too, I'm looking at things and I'm like, okay, I've learned to stop myself from jumping on it. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. I'm going to try to learn a little bit more about this before I jump in. And that's one of, many browsers that I have open, many tabs that I have open to come back to. And when I go back to it, I look at it again. I'm like, you know what? I don't need to spend any money on this, right? I don't need this. And I was reminded by one of my mentors that, you don't need another tool in your toolbox. You just need to do the work. So we want to be careful with how we fill up our toolbox, right? Because as a former electrician, I know I carry around this toolbox, and the more tools I put in it, the heavier it is, man. And the more I had to drag that sucker. And, they kept trying to come up with ways. How do we, instead of just having a tool pouch on my hip, I started carrying a 5-gallon bucket with this little thing wrapped around it where it had little slots, and I can carry all this stuff. And I'm like, now I'm carrying a 5-gallon bucket, to every job. And it just gets crazy. And I look at it today, I go into the Lowe's or Home Depot, and I'm like, yeah, I see all the electrical stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, they got all these fancy contraptions to carry more stuff with you. And I know that on the job, that's what you need, right? You don't want to keep going back and forth to the truck for every little thing that you need, but it's the same thing here. You can do so much with a lot less, and that's what you have to analyze. Well, what's going to help to keep you most organized, most effective with your time? It's going to help give you the confidence that you need and to help build certainty. That is, those are 6 ways to be able to overcome call reluctance. And really what you got to do too with your calls is stay consistent. And as we mentioned earlier on in the call today, is be persistent. I want to ask you, and let's open this up for discussion. What's holding you back from doing more in 24? And what are your excuses? Does anybody want to take a shot at that? I mean, really, what's holding you back? And if you're not aware of what's holding you back, then you should do a self-analyzation, right? A reality check. I know what's holding me back. I know I could probably rattle off a whole bunch of different things that are holding me back, but I'm aware of that. I'm conscious of it. And I strive to do better, and I strive to nip those in the bud and make changes. But Dagmara, I see your hand is up.
I struggle because I'm always doing something. I'm not usually just in a office, sitting there in a quiet environment, to just do one thing at a time. I'm always multitasking. And when I make calls, I'm like, oh, this one probably I shouldn't call while I'm in the car. Or this one I probably shouldn't call when the, dog might make a sound. Or I'll probably wait until after my son leaves for work, because there's always so much going on around me. How do people just sit there and make calls with no distraction? Well, it's not really a distraction. It's just, I don't know. That's my struggle. Like,
And that's a real struggle.
I the car.
Yeah, that is a real struggle. That's no different than anybody else here, right? It might just be different circumstances, right? Maybe we don't have a child at home that we gotta like, well, let me wait till he leaves or things like that. But the reality is that, you should work on having a list of people that you want to call. Just make the calls. Oh, I've got a minute here. So let me make the call. And you call it up and you say, and you start off with, hey, Joe, it's Paul. I only have a minute, but I wanted to give you a quick call just to let you know I was thinking about you. Hope all is well. Did you have a great holiday? And is there anything I can do for you? Phrase it up a little bit differently, but that's basically the point, right? You lead it off like, hey, I only have a minute, but you were on my mind. I wanted to reach out, see what I can do to help you out.
I'm interested to know if others on this call have like any input on when you do actually make the calls. Are you like locking yourself in a soundproof room and sitting down 100% call making, or are you multitasking too, or is it just me?
Well, the multitasking thing is normal. Everybody multitask. I can tell you though, it's ineffective, and you really want to try to stay away from the multitasking. The more you can time block and set time aside to stay focused on making the calls, the better off you're going to be. But with your situation, you can't do that, right? You've got too much going on to where you can't necessarily time block. So you have to figure out, all right, well, I can't do it that way. So what other way can work for me? And that would be having that list in front of you ready to go, and just picking up the phone and making a call in between getting kids ready for school, you getting ready for work or whatever the case might be, and just making the call. When you're on the road driving, it's like, well, don't think about, well, I'll just wait till I get to my destination, or I'll wait for this, or I'll wait for, just make the call. Look, it's just the more you do it, the easier it becomes, the more routine it becomes, and the less you have to think about it. It's just the more we think about things, the more it creates problems for us. Yeah, Ellie?
I agree with Brian where he puts things on do not disturb, and it helps emails not come in and the text messages not come in. I tell people like who I really know that they should call me twice if they need to get to me, because if it's on do not disturb, it won't come through. And keeping concentrated on your calls is a good thing, because you don't know who's going to pick up. And when they do, you got to be ready. And if you're doing something here and you look up, like for my dialer, I don't know who the person is. And there's tabs to show me, if they're an expired, when they expired, what kind of house they have, what the description of the home was before, what the front view of the house looks like. So it'll automatically, go to the next one. And then I have to start looking up that information, time and time again. So not to be multitasking during that time. I mean, it's hard to not to multitask, but that's why I got like this big old setup here for my office. So, which is a little cubby hole. It's not like it's an office with 4 walls. I got the laundry over there. The oven's behind me. The dog's right there.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, look, there's distractions all around us. So the more you can block out any distractions, the more effective you're going to be. And again, I understand your situation is different, Dagmara, but you have to work within those confines and figure out what is going to work for you. How is this going to best work for me and making this work? Multitasking, I've heard people say, oh, I do so well with multitasking. Well, the brain can only handle one thing at a time. So I don't care what you say about multitasking. It's not as effective as if you stay focused on one thing at a time, but you just have to find a way, and I know that you get home from a long day at work and it's like, well, then you got the family depending on you. And so it's really hard to say, well, I get home at 6, so let me take 6 to 7 to make calls, because, well, the family's been waiting for you to get home and you got to deal with them. And then, start 7, 8 to, 8 o'clock at night, it's a little bit late to start making calls. So it's a matter of just trying to figure out, again, what works best for you. One of the dialers probably won't be effective for you because you can't sit there and dial out. So you have to do that one at a time. But for others that are, looking at trying to make more calls, you might want to consider looking into a dialer system that ties to your database, whatever your CRM that you're using, so that you can make a lot more calls, because it is a numbers game. And the more calls that you can make, the more business you're going to drum up. I guarantee it. So, be consistent, be persistent, and just stay after that. What else is who else is being held back by something? I think we're all similar in a lot of what holds us back, right? Yeah, and I don't care how long you've been in this business and how effective you are. And I know that even the highest producing agents have got things that are holding them back from even getting themselves to that next level, right? But they're just more effective with their time and what they do. They've learned systems to implement, because the more systems that you implement and learn and can utilize, that's how you scale your business, right? That's how you become one of those big producing agents. But it requires a lot of time and effort and persistence to be able to put that into place. It also requires investment. It requires investing your time and money into these different platforms that are effective. And so you need to learn that what is going to be the best tool for me to use.
I'm just going to go back to, as far as what's holding me back, the importance of the affirmations. It was your first point, and I think it should be your first point, especially for me. I'll speak about me. I have this ninja prayer here. I just found it buried on my desk. I have no, I need to put it back up in the front. And I firmly believe that the most important conversation you have every day is the one that happens between your ears first thing in the morning. I need to get back in my good habits to put myself in the right frame of mind. And with the right frame of mind, all things are possible. So
it all begins and ends in the mind, really does. And so the more you can control that and have resolution and be persistent and consistent, and it's just, you're gonna see a transformation if you actually take the steps necessary to make the changes up here. I guarantee it. And I know that I learned that firsthand back in 2008. I was struggling just like everybody else. And I'm like, but I was like, wait a minute, I'm looking around. I'm like, well, they're making money. Why aren't I making money? I was a big producer before, the market shifted. I'm doing all the same stuff, but the market changed. I didn't change. I didn't adapt. So when I learned that all came from up here and working with a frame of mind coach to change my frame of mind. When I started thinking differently, whole world around me changed. That's where you all have to start. And that's why I thought this was like the most important way to start 2024 here with our sessions, is to be able to help people get in that right frame of mind, to be able to make those calls, because that really is for all of us. It doesn't matter what stage of the business you're in, or even what business you're in. It's making those calls and being effective with your time to be able to grow your business, because business is not going to just come to you. It's just, as Jeremy said at the very beginning of this, he was been after an agent for a long time, and it was always a no. And then all of a sudden, just like that, something happens, and now it's a definite maybe. So yeah, this happens in sales. It happens in everything in life. And so if you stick to it, you keep nurturing what you have, things start to grow. Anybody else have something I want to share that's holding them back? We're quickly approaching the top of the hour. Anybody have any excuses they want to share? Trust me, I've heard them all, and I hear them up here too. Okay, so it's not just you. I'm not any better. I think I'm just very aware of what's going on up here, and I have to stop myself. So, and there's days where I try to stop myself, and I struggle to stop myself. Right, I kind of get in that vortex, spiraling down, because there's like, I'm letting too much negativity in. And so I have to get to that point where it's like, all right, Paul, enough. Okay. And I have to flip the switch and get it back into a positive way. How many calls are you going to make this week?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. I know you will. Ellie, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. You've been pretty awesome. So doing great job. All right, guys. Well, we're approaching the top of the hour here. Open up for any last comments, last questions before we part ways. And I've got some great plans for the weeks ahead. I've got some special guests. If you've been in the academy, you'll see that I had 2 really great interviews over the holidays that I've uploaded in there. And that's what I'm doing moving forward. I'm going to have these interviews with some top level coaches from around the country that I've worked with before, doing interview style and having these videos available for you to help with your mindset. And most of it is going to be about mindset and things that you can be doing for your business. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. Anybody else have anything for the good of the cause? All right, guys. Well, look, I appreciate all of you being here. I know it's the first of the year and I wasn't sure how many people would be jumping on, but it's great to see all of you. I look forward to seeing you next week. And if you know anybody that you want to invite, please go ahead and invite them to come on board. We're trying to open this up and expand it a little bit more this year and bring on some more people so we can have more squares here on the screen and keep it interesting and fun. And yeah, so we're going to do more in 24. Yeah, Ellie?
No, I was just waving.
Oh, okay. I thought you were raising your hand. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.